well, with another business, a large pharmacy that we had. So I'll give you some insight into that as well. What we want to cover off today is basically we want to go through a little bit around looking at your businesses, where it is now, health check of your lease, if you like, and what, is it viable to look at renegotiating your lease wherever it is at its life, regardless of whether you're coming to the end, you're starting a new life, or you're right in the middle, because the current market is very much a good opportunity to look at your leases. Then what we'll do, so we'll look at that midterm aspect. We'll have a look at the longer term. So whether you're just going into a lease, how do we look at that? Some tips about that, but also about developing a strategy, what you want to achieve. You need to set some goals with your lease. So you need both a current strategy now, but also looking at it long term, because that's in terms of leasing, that the guys that your landlords or real estate agents, the people that you're dealing with, are going to very much try and draw it out, because as you get to the end of a lease, or you're trying in a rush to find somewhere to put your business, they know they've got leverage, they know you've got under pressure. So one thing a lot of people don't do is start early enough, regardless of whether it's a new site or if it's an end of lease, if you're renewing an option, all of that sort of stuff. So we'll just run over that. And then some important tips just on understanding your leases, what to look out for, that sort of stuff, some of those points. So in terms of where you're at now, it's really important. And this is, I always would recommend, like I said, I spent 15 years working in leasing for a couple of major retailers, both in fast moving consumer goods and bulky goods. But still now with our own business, and in that business, my wife has a pharmacy with 35, 40 staff, so a large pharmacy doing about 800 scripts a day. But I still used an external leasing negotiator because it gives you a different perspective. It gives you a different point of view and some separation between the business and the landlord and that negotiation. So it is very powerful to consider using that. And if you've got a good guy, a good leasing guy, they generally will work on a success fee. So that's kind of important, that they're happy to, I suppose, put their fee on the line, and they're only working on whether it's a saving or something like that. So they tend to look at a success fee. Hey guys, also, as we go through, if you've got questions, maybe type them in the chat so you don't forget them. We can come back to them at the end too. That's probably just one thing I wanted to mention. So really important, regardless of where they are now, give your business a health check around the lease. So what do you want to do with your business? What are your goals? Are you looking to expand it? Are you looking to consolidate, reduce your cost? Is the rent hurting you? Have you had a change in your turnover or top line income? That means you need to look at, reducing that rent expense, consolidating. So you need to be quite clear and maybe sit down, spend a bit of time, brainstorm with other mentors and people outside of your business as to where you want your business to go. So that's quite important. You need a starting point. So you need to know what you're looking to achieve. So then also, if you've got an existing lease, what you want to be looking at is, are you looking to redevelop? When are your renewals coming up? That sort of stuff. Where are you in the life of that lease? I don't suppose if the guys who are here want to put in your current lease. So are you at the end of a lease? Are you looking for a new premises? That sort of stuff. Or just give me some idea. Just pop that into the chat. Let us know where you're at in your current lease life cycle, because every negotiation is going to be different. There's no set formula. So the other thing we want to consider too is the state legislation at the moment. And that's in two aspects. If you're covered by the Retail Leases Act in Australia, it's going to supersede your actual lease. So if there are any contradictory conditions in that lease, this is part of your lease health check. So understanding what it is. You need to look at your state legislation or get your leasing advisor to do that, and we can help with that if need be with our guys. It's really important because what it could mean for you is that some aspects of your lease that aren't necessarily in your favor are not relevant, because the Retail Leases Act very much balances and overwrites leases. So they can't contradict it. They can't impact you in a negative way. So it's a really powerful piece of legislation there, the Retail Leases Act, and really important to understand your legislation in relation to your lease, and especially if you've got multiple sites, so it's going to be different. So yeah, so if you've got multiple leases, each one's going to be different, but yeah, very much that legislation's important. So the other thing is benchmarking your rent, and a good lease negotiator, a good lease advisor, a good real estate agent should be able to give you an idea. It's really powerful. Anytime you go talk to the landlord, you want facts and figures. I would always recommend that. So understand where your lease sits in relation to other leases. So are you under market rent? Are you over market rent? Because how that impacts is going to be, well, look, if you sort of put a proposal to the landlord, but they can get more money because you're under market, then you know your chances of success are going to be limited. But if they've got vacancies, you're paying either market rent or over market, and then they have vacancies. So it's understanding that market and benchmarking your rent, which as an individual owner, you're not always going to have the option. This is why I'm a big believer in getting an external help with your leases. And not only benchmarking your rent in relation to other rents in the market, it's also benchmarking the site too. So, you know, like I said, if your landlord's got multiple vacant sites and that sort of stuff, and this is going to be different if you're in a strip shop or a shopping center, it is going to vary. But that financial benchmarking of your premises as well. So, you know, there'll be an affordable rent, whether you're in a medical center, whether you're in a pharmacy, whether you're in optometry, there's an affordable and acceptable rent percentage within that industry that is right for a business. It'll vary slightly for regional and metro and you know, high traffic environments like shopping centers versus standalone sites. So there's going to be some nuances there depending on the individual thing, but it's really powerful to understand where it should sit in relation to the overall financial performance within that industry. Because again, that's something you can use with your landlord. Landlords love facts and figures, and they find it really hard to argue with that. Whereas if you sort of go and say, oh, we need this, we're not surviving, or we feel the rent's too high, you really need to back it up with some numbers is what I'm saying. So that's really, really important. And then what sort of leverage are you going to have within the market? So that's I suppose benchmarking the actual site. Are there other vacancies? It's really powerful if you can relocate. That's one of the best leverages, but it's not always easy. So do your homework, see if there are other sites available, see what they're asking for those other sites. Get an idea of what else is around your location. Would your business suit? Are there multiple sites for your business? You know, again, if there's vacancies within a center or a strip, it's unlikely that if you leave, they're going to be able to fill that because there's already other vacancies, other competition around. So it puts you in a stronger position. So you've got to understand your leverage there. And that's really important because that's at the end of the day, it's about leverage with a landlord. So this is all just reminding, you know, this is all in the context of having a look at where you're at now, put your lease into context, put your rent into context in terms of a health check. All right. So just recap, understanding your goals, where you want to go with your business. Are you expanding, consolidating, reducing costs, those sorts of things. Really understand your lease. What are your commitments in terms of how much time do you need if you're midterm to renew? Don't underestimate the time it takes. Start thinking about it early if you're looking at an option or a renewal, because landlords love to make you run out of time and put you on month to month, because it puts you under more pressure. Understand your lease in relation to the Retail Leases Act. And this is where having a third party, if you've got a regular lawyer use, they can help you with that. Benchmarking that rent. So understanding what the market rent is around you. It's really powerful if you can go to a landlord and say, well, hang on, all these other medical centers in this area are averaging X amount per square meter. Whereas you want us to pay X plus 20%, 30%. Why is that? Doesn't stack up. So understanding the site, is there an opportunity for other sites? One thing that's really important to do when you're looking at other sites, sorry, I'll come on to that in a sec. I'll just recap. The other thing is your financial benchmarking. What should you be paying for rent? What's affordable? What makes your business profitable? Really know what rent your business can sustain in good times and bad times. And what rent increases. You need to understand the effects of those increases if you're looking at a rent. Is it a ratchet increase? Is it just a percentage off base rent? Is it CPI? That's really important. So when you're doing your financial benchmarking, it's really powerful to know that before you sit down. So that's about your health check. The other thing is the site health check as well, which I'll throw in there. Most of the big chains, big retailers, anything like that doesn't matter whether it's a medical center chain, the good guys in leasing, in that they'll actually point score sites so that they can give themselves options. So is it accessible from both sides of the road? Is there parking? How accessible is it for customers to get in and out? Can they just jump out of the car, come in? And this will be different if you're looking at a shopping center environment, so it will change. But understand what factors around a physical location you're looking for. How big a frontage do you need? Do you just want a little frontage, because you'll pay less for a smaller frontage? Do you want that high traffic, or you're prepared to pay less for lower traffic? But parking's essential, accessibility off the roads, accessible. Public transport's another one. And also schools and the communities around. So really be critical in your thinking when you're looking at sites and alternative sites. Some sites might score better in one area than other areas. An easy way to do that is find out what's important to you, give that a score out of 10, and be quite ruthless in scoring all the different sites. It's really good if you can give yourselves options when you're entering into a negotiation. So if you've got alternatives, or if you're sitting on a month to month, if you're coming up to renewal, all of that's really powerful when you approach a landlord, if you've got options. So if we're looking at, I find a lot of people, and I spoke to a large group last year, and overwhelmingly, most people thought if they're midterm in a rent, there's nothing they can do, they're stuck there. More now than ever, that is not the case. It's really important to understand you've got options, right? Regardless if you're just sitting halfway through a 6-year lease, it doesn't matter. COVID's actually helped that, because there are, it really opens the discussion. Again, have your facts when you talk to the landlord though. If you've been impacted by COVID, show a percentage, show a decline, and you be able to explain either decline in customer numbers, decline in your financial performance directly related to COVID with non-COVID times. It's really powerful to a landlord, and it makes it just harder for them to squirm. So it's about understanding now, is it going to be beneficial? Because the thing to think about too, just because you've got 3 years or 2 years left on a lease, is the landlord in 2 years' time in the current market going to be able to let that site if you were to find a better site? So you might be better off going to the landlord now and being able to go, you might have some leverage to say, hey, look, I'll actually extend my lease and I'll take it. I've only got 2 years left, but I'll go to 4 years if we can look at renegotiating now. And so though you might get the drop now rather than wait 2 years. It's really powerful to look at that because the landlord, it gives them some security and continuity, especially in this current environment. Landlords are looking for that security at the moment because it's, being a landlord's not great in the current market. In most cases, they've all got vacancies and that. So if they can get a secure business and guarantee themselves some continuity, it is really good leverage. It's gold to them. So that's a really important point to look at. And especially if you can you've been impacted a little bit by COVID, but not a lot, and you've still got a really good viable business, well, bring that renewal forward, renew now, and look at extending that term because that's where you've got some leverage. Or, if you're in a position to, the other thing with leverage that they love is offering up to look at partial or some sort of refurbishments or improvements because it improves the value of their asset. So that's another, when we're looking at midterm renegotiations, please don't think that because you're sitting only 2 years into your lease or 3 years into the lease that there's nothing you can do. The other thing, really important point in that is if you're within 2 years of the end of the lease, most landlords will take 1 to 2 years to negotiate on a renewal. So starting now is actually not mid-term in some, even though it might on paper be mid-term, starting now is actually that they'll use up all that time really quickly. So just be really mindful of that. Never leave it till the last 12 months or you'll find yourself sitting on month to month and then you lose the leverage. You've got urgency because remember, if you haven't got a site, you haven't got a business. And then that has a massive flow-on effect in terms of the value of your business. If you've got finance and banks and stuff like that, they don't like businesses without a secure lease. Same with your quality assurance and stuff like that. When you're doing your certifications every, I think, 2 years roughly, they want to see continuity in your lease. So be really careful about letting it get to the last 12 months. That's one thing I can actually speak from experience that they love to, I've seen lots of people where they end up on month to month with big viable businesses, but until they actually have a lease, the business is worth zero in the eyes of a financier or for their accreditations and stuff like that. So just be really careful like that. And look at your external factors, like I said. So, what's the market like? Are there vacancies around? Are other businesses struggling? Because if you can go to a landlord and say, well, this is coming up in 2 years, the market's not going to move that much in the next 2 years. The current environment has really changed things and it's put people with good business models and good businesses, even though everyone's probably had some impact, but the more secure businesses, it's put them in a really strong position to negotiate with the landlord that's looking for some continuity and some security around their lease. Because don't forget, that's tying back. So understand that for a landlord, their lease ties back to the value of that property. So it's affecting their leverage and their loans and the banks are looking at them as well. So it can put you in a powerful position. And again, approaching the landlord, as I said before, do your benchmarking, both of the rent, the site, and your financial performance, so you know exactly what you're trying to achieve. Never approach a landlord unless you know 100% why and what you want to achieve, be it now for a current, a reduction or something like that, or into the future. And don't be afraid to look at redesigning or repurposing your space. If you want to expand it and add more opportunity to increase your turnover, at the same time, if you've been hurting, but you can do the same with a smaller space. If you've got space you're not using, maybe they can cut it off and let it. So look at that reconfiguration, keep that in the back. That's thinking outside the box, but often a landlord will certainly go for a reconfiguration if you're trying to consolidate and reduce size. So how we just a reminder, anyone, pop any questions in or write them down so that at the end of it, we can pick up on them or come back to them. And if I'm talking too fast, I apologize. Just, again, let me know. So the other thing is, not just midterm, we'll just look at some general points now for any negotiation, any renewal, or even looking at a brand new lease and site. I come back to that, understanding the benchmarks and the market. It's really important. If you need help with that, we can do that. I'll give you a little bit more information on how UHS helps businesses at the end of this. It wasn't designed to be about UHS, but I'll just give you a little bit of background about how we help and can help businesses. But it's really important to understand your goals and the current market, and therein lies is where you'll find the leverage. So when you're looking at a new lease or a renewal, one of your biggest leverage points is going to be having options for different sites. It's really important. So spend a lot of time with real estate agents. Don't necessarily believe what they tell you, but spend a lot of time with real estate agents. One other point too, I think we've got a couple of pharmacists in. Just remember, pharmacists now, because there's backfill laws, so you're actually coming up to renewal, the landlord's not allowed to backfill that space if they don't renew for 12 months. They're not allowed to put another pharmacy in. So it gives you it's really improved that position. They're not going to kick you out and pop another pharmacy in, a competing brand or a discount brand or something like that. They can't for 12 months. So keep that in the back of your mind too. That's just one more thing. Unfortunately, if you've got a medical center optometry, they don't have those protections. So just be mindful when you're approaching the landlord for rent. If you go in too hard and too low and you don't have an alternative, they'll just say no, because it's also about what they can put into that space if you leave, and can they get the same or more rent. So that's sort of, I suppose, the flip side to having leverage is you need to understand where they're coming from. They're about what rent can I get for that space. It doesn't have to stay as the same use. So they could move a medical center out and put a retail clothing business in, or something like that. They could put an account. They can do, whereas with a pharmacy, they have to be a bit more careful with the backfill laws. They could put another doctor in too, so another center. So just, be mindful of that and understand what they're going to be looking for, where they're going to be coming from, and their position, what they'll think. Again, this is why I keep coming back to having a third party, because you guys should be focusing on running your business and doing what you do day to day, doing that best, that customer experience, that patient experience, and also managing your staff's a huge aspect too. So really remember, and this is not just in leasing, in any aspect of your business, you do what you do well, you do your high value tasks that's going to add the most value to your business, and don't be afraid to use external resources, because they will generally well and truly pay for themselves, especially in leasing. The thing with your renewals, just on that, so whether it's a renewal, whether it's a new site, really plan in terms of time. It's really important. These guys will absolutely try and wear you down in terms of time and take it slow. They do it on purpose. This is what they do for a living. This is all they do for a living. So remember that. It's really important that you give yourself plenty of time. And we're actually working with 2 new businesses at the moment. One, they've come to us only 4 weeks out. It's a lot harder to get them good pricing and good deals and stuff like that when the landlord's pushing them to open, or they're going to use their first month free rent. whilst they're still trying to get stuff up and running. So it's really important you give yourself plenty of time. The other business, we've been working with them now since the start of the year. They're not opening until January. Everything's smooth. We've got some really, really good deals and savings because we've had time to work on them. They're in a really strong rent position and that sort of stuff. So chalk and cheese there between the business that have given themselves a lot of time versus the guys that haven't. So just be really careful with that. In going to the landlord to put a proposal to the landlord, again, this comes back to what I was talking about earlier. Benchmark your proposal, have those facts and figures before you go there so that because in benchmarking and educating the landlord, it'll also help their expectations in thinking, well, should I take this? Should I take you? Or can I get someone else to come in here? Can I get a dress shop? Can I get, a fish and chip shop? Can I get an accountant to come in here and pay that rent or more? And the answer is probably not going to be in this market. This is what puts health businesses in a really strong position because there is security there. There's, they look good to landlords at the moment. But if you have the facts before you approach them, it'll make your job much easier. It'll get them to understand a lot quicker as well. Couple of things to look at as you get an offer and come back, some really important things, because what inevitably the lawyers for the landlord will do is they will try and pick up what they've given away on the back end, if that makes sense. So you might get a really nice upfront rent. Be really careful and check your outgoings. What you pay in rent is the sum of your rent and outgoings. A lot of people go in on a great rent, realize they pay as much in outgoings as they do in base rent. So that's a key consideration. There's not always a lot of flexibility. Sometimes the outgoings are what they are, but just be mindful, have a really good look at that because they can put in, management fees into the outgoings just to pick up what they've discounted at the front end. Really push hard for your incentives. And why is that important? From a landlord's point of view, an incentive does not affect the value of their asset, if that makes sense. So the value of their asset is based on the base rent and the rent increases. So they can afford to give you better incentives. They won't want to, but they can afford, from a valuation perspective, to give you a really good incentive. So whatever incentive they give you, they can afford to give you more because it's not affecting the value of their asset. So, weigh up those incentives, things like fit outs, things like rent-free periods, that sort of stuff. Even if they, if they give you 1 month rent-free, that is nothing. I can tell you now, if someone's offering you 1 month rent-free, that's just a throwaway. It's nothing. You should be getting 6, 9, 12 months rent-free and pushing for that at the moment. The terms and the options are important as well because that gives you some continuity. It affects the value of your business then. If you're having a business valued for a bank or a finance company, they will look at the rent and options because the longer that goes on, the more security they've got, then they see a longer term, more viable business. So that's really important to consider. I mentioned the fit out. So just be mindful of what they put in as landlord works and tenant works. So whilst they might say, we'll give you a fit out, make sure you go into detail there. That's really important. A lot of people will get caught out because when we've got our fit out, their version of the fit out's different to your version of the fit out. So just be mindful of that. What are landlord works? What are tenant works? And just make sure that they're not saying they're giving you a fit out when you get down to it, all they've done is paint the walls, but nothing else. So just be mindful of that. The other thing too is your material lease conditions. A lot of them will, if you're in a shopping center, it doesn't matter whether you're a doctor or a optometrist or a pharmacist, They'll want turnover information and stuff like that. So look through those material lease conditions, use your lawyer to highlight them, and try and find a lawyer that will actually not just read it and say, yep, that's a lease and that's right, but actually give you some commercial feedback on it too. If you can find that, or that's where using a leasing consultant will come in. They'll look at it from a commercial perspective. Your lawyer will look at it from a different legal perspective. The bank guarantee and security, that's another one that people will get caught out with, be really mindful of. And it's something that the landlords will use to negotiate. I've seen recently, where they've tried to ask for a 12-month bank guarantee, and we actually used, this was for a client, and we used David, who was going to do this presentation, to reduce that down to 5 months with no personal guarantees. So there is negotiation around that, because if you can avoid it, you don't want personal guarantees in there. It's hard to avoid. But also bank guarantees is going to affect your finance. That's counted as a loan when the bank looks at your overall lending ratios. So just be mindful of those bank guarantees. It'll be sitting there. So that security as a whole, which will be around the guarantees that you have to provide, or what guarantors there are, but also the bank guarantees. The other thing you want to make sure too that people often miss out is that you have the right of assignment. So if you build this great business, doesn't matter what sort it is, and it's time to move on, and you've got a goal and an exit strategy, and you sell that business, is the assignment, do you have the right to assign it? And have they put conditions on that assignment? That's really, really important too. A lot of people don't look at that assignment, and then they come to sell their business and realize it's clear there that they want you to stay on as a guarantor for the life of the lease, which you don't want. You can't do that. One more thing, so be really careful about that. The other one is your rent increases when you look at it. And most people think, oh, it's a rent increase, it goes up 3.5% or 5% or whatever it might be. What's it going up as a percentage of? Is that 5% rent increase off your base rent? So base rent is your year one rent, or is it off last year's rent? Because if it's off last year's rent, it's that whole compounding effect. So it goes up 5% in the first year, and then your next year's 5% is off an increased base. So each year your rent's going up, but the 5% is a larger amount because it's a 5% of a bigger rent from the previous year. That's what they call a ratchet clause, and I would avoid them at all costs, because I can guarantee after 6 years your business won't be sustainable, because that compounds. You look at, you would have all learned, everyone knows about compounding interest and that effect and how quickly it can grow. If you've got that and it's increasing off the previous year's rent, it will compound massively. So be really careful of that. Whereas you just want to be clear, you want a 5% increase or CPI increase off year one base rent, not off the rent from the previous year. So that's a really important thing to look at. All right, so the aim was to go for 40 to 45 minutes and then give you guys all some time for some questions and stuff like that. I will also put up the details of David, who I've used personally. We had a 7-figure rent in a pharmacy. We got a 30% rent reduction using David, and he only charged a success fee as a percentage of that. So I will put David's details up shortly. And just in terms of United Health Services, what we do, we're about being a resource. I talked about using external resources to help your business so you can focus on what you do best. We are one of those external resources for health businesses. We help businesses in 3 ways. This is one way, so with business advice and being an external reference point from a business perspective. The second point is we do run a social media posting service that we charge $100 a month, a flat fee, where we do 2 to 3 posts a week for your business. We do the content. Alice does that for us. It's then we review that with you on an ongoing basis and post it as needs, and we don't do it around selling stuff. We do it about building your business as a trusted voice in that community and getting to know the people in your business and your practice. So it's a really effective, if you try and pay someone to do that through an agency or something like that, you'll be paying between $500 and $1,000 a month. So whereas we'll put that content out on Facebook, you can still do your own posts, but at least you know you've got a consistent voice every week going out there. And the third, and probably, I suppose, one of the most immediate impactful things is our United Health Services buying group. So we work with suppliers and leverage the independent buying power of a couple of hundred businesses or more than that, so that we get you better deals on your rent, on your phones, on your consumables, if you're a medical practice, electricity, those sorts of things. So yeah, we've got three aspects in the way we help as a resource to a business. We add value through the buying group. Save, I've seen insurance on both pharmacy and medical centres drop by, our average insurance savings actually 40% with stronger cover. So electricity is another massive one, especially if you've got pharmacies in a shopping centre. We'll negotiate with the landlord. Don't think, as part of your lease that you can't do anything about your electricity if you pay it to a landlord. There is a way to do that. None of the electricity retailers will do it because they don't make money out of it, but it's something that we do for our clients. And then the buying, the social media posting and the business advice. It really allows you to focus on what you do best inside your business. We'll give you a hand from the outside, and definitely frees up a lot of time as well as adds to the bottom line. I'm just going to pop David's details up and share my screen in. So David's got lots of experience with pharmacy, with medical centres. He's worked for some big brands. In the pharmacy space, he's worked for Terry White. From a head office point of view, represented the group. He's currently working for Bloom's. That was through United Health Services that we put them in touch. He's worked for Whole Life Pharmacy as well. He's worked for the Luxottica group in their optometry brands. He's worked for Spotlight, Harris Scarf, Anaconda, Silk Laser Clinics, and My Health Medical Centre. So he's got a really good understanding, and he's also worked on the other side. He's worked for Westfield, he's worked for Stockland, and that I find is really powerful because he understands if you're negotiating with the landlord, he's been working on that side too. So he does understand all the games that they try and play. And just remember, one of the reasons you want to use an external leasing executive is because the person that you're negotiating against, that is all they do. Their whole, you have to remember that they're, you as a medical professional are negotiating with someone who does leasing and tries to maximize the rents they get every day of their life. That's what they do. So that again, it comes back to using external resources so you can focus on your business. And it is a really powerful thing. And I find that businesses that embrace that concept and really do develop their business and grow their business quite well. All right. So if you guys want to unmute yourselves, if you've got any questions, or either pop them in the chat, don't mind either way. And we can, happy to answer any questions. And then also, if you want to contact us or get in touch with David to get some assistance, certainly let us know, reach out to me, and we can help that way. Given that you've registered, you should have my email address, or just go via our website and pop in a query. So does anyone have any questions? You'll have to unmute yourself if you do. No? So certainly, Jayesh, you've got multiple leases there. If you want to have a chat about those, just to get a more detailed view about that, and your expired site too, even the ones midterm where you've got multiple, be really good to have a chat about that if you want a hand, and I'll introduce you to David. Anyone else? And certainly from a United Health Services point of view, if you want us to have a look at your business, see where we can help, we do that completely free of charge. We do all our expense reviews as part of the buying group completely free. So you're not obligated. You don't have to use our services, but we will do a review. You can have a look at it, see what is applicable, and see how much you can save in that aspect. If you've enjoyed this, we're coming up in another month. We're going to drill down and look at the different insurances in this health space. There's different categories of insurance, and we find a lot of businesses are underinsured. At the same time, a lot of businesses are paying for insurance that they don't really need. So again, I think I mentioned our average saving in insurance is 40% with better cover. And that's across areas both. So you've got your indemnity insurance as a health business, you've got your actual business insurance, and that can be covering a lot or a very small amount of stuff. And then you've got your cyber and that data insurance, which is really important because there are some big penalties in the health space. There's some big penalties in the health space if you have data breaches. So it's really something to look at. So, yeah. On that note, certainly, I'm going to pop my mobile number in the chat and my email address. And I'd love to have a chat to you all individually. I can give you David's details individually as well. And certainly work out any ways we can help specific to your leases or other aspects of your business. All right, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this, certainly let other people know around you. If you think there's anyone that might benefit either from assistance with leasing or that expense reduction, yeah, certainly let me know, or tell them about us. That'd be great. All right, thank you very much, everyone. I'm going to end the meeting now.